Good morning. Let's start. Can all of you hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, today we'll be starting the session 2 for this mobile app. We'll be going a little bit slow because the content will be a little bit denser. Okay, let me just explain. But before we proceed, let me just do a recap. We've already gone through from chapter 1 to 4. Hopefully I saw some of you have already submitted the app. It's a good attempt. And I'll be going through some of your submission later, and then maybe if I can give you some uh, suggestion also on the maybe changes you can do, and also some corrections on some errors that you might be facing. Okay, so we have already gone through the introductions, and you understand the whole logics and also the different modules, the functions and the features for this IDE. And then you already gone through all this, especially for the different apps, right? So primarily our focus would be on additional applications going forward. And some of you must have already done some additional, some additional applications that is not in any of the problem statement, which is good. As you try to develop more application, you will notice some similarity among all these applications. Okay, definitely you have already done one. Some of you have already done two, and I think one or two have already tried to do some very new applications. So as we move, before we move on to the next chapter, have all of you noticed something similar among all these applications? There's something similar. Whether you're doing, we did number one, you did the second applications, and even additional applications, based on your some ideas, but all of them share similarities. Do you know what they are? Anyone want to try? Yes, all of them got UI, but they share a similar trait that is that the can it's not a good thing, but it's sort of a bad thing. Something that is not good. Can be reusable is good. Then Xu Huang actually mentioned correctly, because it cannot save. All these data, they are what they call volatile, meaning you cannot save. Sorry, what am I writing? So whatever that you have entered in the fields, the buttons or the recorded messages, and then when you save, right, you're not able to save them, or you're not able to see all those data after you quit your application. So it makes your app actually not very usable, right? So today and this week, our focus really is on how are you going to ensure that your data becomes non-volatile. All right. And last week, I did mention something about the export. One of the features that this app can do is to save to a file, right? Save to a file. where your information can be stored as a CSV, which you can also open up in your Excel file, right? But our focus today would be more on how the data are stored such that you can actually retrieve them in a formatted way, right? Formatted. So that's why we're going to go talk about database. Okay. For the engineers, I think they have already gone through the database portion, as in how are they able to create a database on the back end. I'm not going to go into so detail for the mobile side. The focus is really on how are we going to utilize them, and of course to have a basic understanding. So before we move on how to create the database in your applications, let me just go briefly on the database to talk about it more briefly, so we can have a better understanding in a very generic way. Okay, for especially for those who are in on a layman term, exactly what is database. So imagine with me, this is your Excel file. Okay, use, okay, so this is your Excel file. Now, so all these will be considered your row, right? And then these are your columns. So database works pretty much very similar to this. Now, so your rows will be considered as records. Your columns will be considered as fields. Later, I will show you the similarity. I will do this. I'll map this over to your application, so it'll be much clearer for you, right? So each of these, so you will have in a database. This is what we call the format. So this whole in your Excel file, this is one sheet, right? This is like sheet number one. You can have multiple sheet up to n. So this sheet will be similar to what in the database called terms called table. One sheet will have one table. And then your multiple sheet will be considered as one database. All right. Now, what are these columns and field, or these rows and records and fields? What are they all about? How do we map that? So this is basically just a format. Okay, just a format. So imagine that particular format. Your tables are here, all encapsulated under database, under one database, for example. So in order for a database to be a system, right? You must have all these features, meaning that you can input the data, you can edit, you can update, you can select, meaning that you can do sort of like whatever, sorting, filtering, searching. And you can output the information, and you can do manipulations, modifications, and you can share. Okay, concurrent usage. So this whole thing, it must have this capability in order to be a database management system. So for your applications, every phone or every devices that does data manipulations must have some sort of a database system. Okay. So in your applications, last week we already went through this file where you can store your information into a particular file in your phone. So today we're going to touch on the Tiny database. Okay, let's do some hands-on, so it'll help you to help you understand even further, which I'll go through in more detail. So can all of you launch your Google Chrome and then click this and drag and drop it down your application. What we're going to do is we're going to take out the mobile app one that you did last week, that we went through last week, and we're going to add the saving feature. Saving, retrieving, modification. Using this Tiny app. Okay. So if all of you drop the Tiny database down to your app, you should see this Tiny database at the bottom. Okay. You won't see anything on the display. So once you did that, can you click on the blocks and then go and click onto your Tiny database? Okay, so once you click this, you will see these selections, right? Now, earlier on I mentioned how are we going to map that database format onto your application. So you notice here on your application, you have this read name, mobile app one, read name, and then your button to get the information of the name from a voice, or some of you maybe you want to enter, and then the temperature from the voice or the entry. So these are all called the fields, right? So when you press the update button, it stores into your list, right? So one of these lists is considered as your record. All right. So our focus for this mobile app is really on these two things. First of all, we need to store the database, right? You notice here you have this tag and this value to store. Now, you have this information read name, meaning that this tag is the name or the title of that field. So in our case, we can call it read name. And then the value to store is actually the one. Let's say you read name and then the name is the value that you put in is Susan, and that will go into here. Okay. So this is when you perform this function, perform this call to store the value. What the system will do is that they will store this. You store the value Susan into the field name called read name. Then the next one is if you want to store the temperature, you do the same thing, calling this store value, and the tag name is called read temp. And then the value would be the value that you got it, which is 36.4. All right. So when you perform this item, this information will be stored in your phone, these two information. But how do you get them back? By using this item called get value. So get value, when you do this one, what it does is that the tag you must give the name. If let's say you are reading, you want to retrieve the read name, the name. Let's say so you want to retrieve this. Your tag must be equal to the name that you save in. This name is really called read name. All right. But they give you an option here means that they have options here. Value if tag not there. What he's trying to say is that if, for example, they can't find this, meaning that you have never saved this tag or this field in your phone, or maybe you take this application and you put it into another mobile phone that you have, and then when you first launch it, of course you do not have that information, right? You don't have a Susan inside. So what they want is they'll ask you for a data. Maybe it's a blank like this. Right now by default it's a blank information, or you can put as not found, or any string that you want. Okay, so these are the important two functions that you need to be using for converting your mobile app 1 to become mobile app 6. Any questions so far for this? Okay, for this one, these two items. Okay. Okay. So your mobile app 6 will go straight to the application. You're going to do your application, your mobile app 6, which is to convert your mobile app 1 to include the feature TinyDB. Now, I'm not going to go through hand-holding. I've already done that last week. So I'll need you to think, how are you going to implement TinyDB into this application and convert and be able to save all this information that you have recorded into save them as database. Can you all think about it? How are you going to modify your applications to include this? I'll give you all a few minutes. Any question, please ask. I won't give you the answer, but you must let me know how you want to do it, and I will see how I can guide you. But you need to think how are you gonna convert this to this app to be able to save your data on your phone. So what indirectly what I'm trying to say is that your logic, right? Last week we went through a few times that I also mentioned that you need to go through the logical thinking on your applications. What is a logical flow for your application? When you first launch it, what does it do? Or when you enter this, when you press this button, what happens, right? So how are we going to save that into a database? Meaning to say, when you press this update, what are you going to do next? Besides showing information here. All right. I'll give ourselves 10 minutes. Run through this, see if we can do it. If you can't, let me know. We'll go through together. Okay, just to help up a bit, let me just move a bit. Anyone got it to work? Just a hint or so. This value to store, right? If you want to store multiple string, also can. So what do you do? Join. So you can join the strings before you join the strings, and then you put it into your value to store under that tag name. There's a little bit one tricky part, okay? See who discovered the tricky part. I hope you're not waiting for answers. All of you must try. Okay, we give ourselves another 3 minutes. Okay, anyone manage to save your data and retrieve it? No one, is it? Okay. Okay. Now the area that you see, yeah. Now you notice down here you have a tag. So down here earlier on we mentioned is read name or read temp. Right? Same things for here. When you want to get the value, retrieve is also the read name or read temp. However, if you only use two tags, this one only save one record. Right? But down here you have more than one record. So how are you going to save all this? So in other words, you must have multiple copies of this, right? So this is saving record 1, and you have another one of get value and store value for record 2. And so on and so forth until based on the number of information that you've already stored. So example, if let's say you have a 10 records already stored inside this list, you must have 10 of this. Very tedious, right? So I'm going to introduce one thing that the engineer has went through in my C++. We'll be calling that as array. Now, what is array? Array means earlier on last week you mentioned I mentioned you have you understood what is a variable, right? So you have this global variable. You have you initialize a global variable. Let's say, for example, tag name, my name, for example, and you store them as string, right? So this is string. So this global my name only store one value, right? So if you want to store multiples of my name, we need to use something what we call one of the way to do it is using a feature called array. Array is a multiple numbers, multiple arrays, multiple values, multiple values for a variable name. So it does this by storing, let's say my name is, let's say, Susan. Then I have another information called my name. This is number 2. Call John. So on and so forth. So what happened is that if let's say I have, earlier on we mentioned we have 10 records, meaning this guy will go all the way to number 10. But this one will still be named the same. My name. All right. Let me just clear this. So in this scenario, how are we going to save all this information? Here is all. How are we going to save all this information, 10 records, into your phone? So make these two fields become array. So to do that, you have to use the thing called join, right? Earlier on, I mentioned something like that, but I mentioned that is for the data. You can also do that for the tag. That's very powerful for this. So earlier on, we have your tag. You have a tag called read name, correct? But you want to store the first value, so you're going to use the word join. The join function. So this one is the string, and this one is the from here, right? Wait, sorry. Let me just wait. Give me a minute. So you need to use the join, and then one is to join the field name, which is this one, and the next one is the integer number 1. After joining, this join will go to your tag. So meaning to say, you need to run this in a loop, correct? Let's say you have 10 values here, 10 records. You need to run through in a loop 10 times. Let me show you from the this Elementor. So remember we mentioned the last time was this control here, right? We went through a few things. If then, for. Now, what you will need in order to convert that into to store is first of all, you need to know how many value you store in your this list, right? Every time when you press the update button, you actually store one record. You press the second time, you store the second record. So in other words, every time when you press this update, you have a value or a counter that constantly increments when you press update, right? And then you have another method where when you press on the list, it deletes, right? So every time when you press on the list and you confirm you want to delete, you decrease your counter. So how do we do that? So there's a few options, okay? One of them is this thing here, number. So like I mentioned the last time, so if you were to use like here, one of them is called procedure. You can do this. Another one is this local. All this while, I mean, in the application we put in this, right? Initialize global. My name is something text, correct? But also you don't have to be. It doesn't have to be a text, it can be, say, my total number of records. But if total number of records is not a string anymore, isn't it? So it should be called, it should be a numeric, right? So in order to keep track of the number of records that you have stored, every time when I press this update button, I need to increment this total number of records, right? So what I do is I take this one, put it here. To increment this record means that I want to add number 1 to whatever value that is already inside here. So meaning that we have to use some math, right? So it's something plus something, and definitely that one of the things should be number 1, right? Because you're incrementing. But the other one is to increment itself. When you increment itself means that you need to get this value. Let me put it here. So once you've done this, you are incrementing. But if you were to delete, you have to do the minus, the reverse of this. All right? So reverse is something here. Isn't it? So what I'm going to do is I'll duplicate this. And if I confirm I want to delete, remove from the list, just take out here. Then I will need to use the minus. This minus 1 record from whatever that's inside the total number of records that I've already stored. All right. So first of all, you already have the total number of records. Everyone following me here? Okay, good. So in other words, this total number of records will be constantly updated based on the number of update clicks you press and the delete confirmation that you press. Okay, so meaning to say that we will have the total number of lists inside here, right? Let me go back to my screen. Okay. So now you have the record, the counter. Okay. So now you have this counter called total number of records. Right. So this is the one that will tell you how many times you want to get the value and populate into your list. The storing part, you see, let me just go through the logic again. The logic, okay. Okay, first of all is when you press update, you do a store, right? When you press delete or your function called delete, here we are. just need to delete that button. I need to show you how to delete that. Yeah. When you delete, you will remove from the, you use this clear tag. I did not show you just now earlier on, but my main focus was to help you to store the data first. So let me see. Let me see. Do we delete? We can delete. Yeah, just delete. Well, my idea was to do your process here in your list before you actually stores them. But that will need another button, right? So assuming that we just want to keep these three buttons, okay? These three buttons, every time when you press update, it stores. You press update. You see. Let's do this first. Every time we do an update, it does two things. One is to store the value, and the other one is to update. I mean, to list view. Okay. The second thing is when you press the delete, you will clear the tag. And then you also remove from this. Okay. We just do these two things. Now, so besides storing the, so what you have is that you are storing the read name and then the read time, but you have this total number of records, right? Let's say you have 10. You also need to store this in your phone. Why do we need to do that? So once you have entered all the information, and the next time, maybe one hour later, the next day, you launch your application, you need to see all these 10 lists inside here, right? Meaning to say you need to retrieve all these 10 records when you first launch your application. And in order for you to know how many records that you have, you need to store, you must be able to store this value in your phone. Meaning to say that you also need to store this. Whether you're doing updating, you're doing updating or deleting, you must also save this total number of records into your TinyDB. So by having a tag name, so the tag name can be, which is the actual variable name, can be TinyDB, this total number of records. And that value is the value that you store here. All right. So in other words, every time when you do an update or when you do a delete, you must also save this total number of records. Let me come to the having method here again. So when you first launch this application, remember I mentioned about this screen? You click this screen And then you see this initialize. When we do the date, right? When we do the updating the date, we need to do this screen initialize, right? So in other words, in your mobile app 1, which is now 6, you should have one initialize here. It looks like this. All right. So on top of updating the date, month, and the year, we need to populate that list. All right. And when you first launch it, you already initialized that the list, and you will need to do this. If let's say you have 10 records, instead of pressing update because of new records, you need to add to the list 10 times. And for you to do that, we have to use this control call for each number. So this one, this is what we call a for loop. In programming, this is it's called a for loop. And for loop means that you will run whatever that's inside here based inside at a predefined number. So let's say, for example, this is from means I'll start with 1. Initialize, I'll start with 1. And then I will stop at 5. And the increment between 1 to 5 is always 1 time. Okay, let me just go simplify. Let me see if I can. Okay, if I were to do this, right? Just to show you a demonstration, right? You can do store to the text so you can see, let's say output name. Okay. So output name, set text. And what I want is I want to see the value, the number. So what I do is that I'll do this 5 times, right? And I want to see that it actually go through 5 times. So what I'll do is I'll do incremental to show the value, meaning that it will constantly join whatever that's already shown there with the number that I'm going to show. Let's say that is. And then I'm going to take the output of the text. I mean the whatever that's value inside, the name plus this number. You see, this number is the variable that will store the existing running number of from here, number 1 to 5, throughout the whole loop. If you run this, it probably will give you a better idea, right? So maybe let's put this under, just to show a demonstration. You can put this under the same name. Okay, just for testing. If not, you can create a new button so you can see what's the result. So what do you see once you've done that? So when you click the button name, it should ask you for this, or you can actually take this one out. Don't ask you. Okay, and then just by pressing the name button, what do you see in the output? Yep, that's right. You should see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, not very fast, right? So that shows you that you actually went through the loop 5 times. Now I want you to do this. Change this number from 1 to 2. And then press the button again, and what do you see? Yep, that's right. So what it's trying to show here is you can actually change the value. You can jump, just like a jump the loop. Instead of one time each, one value each, you can jump two value each time you go through this loop. All right. But usually we go through once. Okay. So in order for you to update into this list, right? So that means when you first launch, you have to do this based on the number of total number of total number of record that you retrieve. In order to get this, you need to retrieve that record, the tag that you already saved here. The tag would be, just delete this away. I need to store this. This must be constantly updated. The tag would be store the value and that tag. Make sure when you save the tag name must always be the same. Okay? This tag name is very important because this is what you're trying to tell Tiny Database to retrieve the value from. If this one is wrong, let's say for example, instead of record, you press record, it's a different thing. All right, so just take note. So store value. Okay, wait, hang on. This is to store. Okay, this to store means that every time when we click this update, I also want to store. This to ensure that you do not miss out your updating the variable or in the record with the most current information of the total number of records that you have. Same thing, if I were to delete that, I also must do the record. You notice down here, I'm actually doing the same thing twice. So in other words, this is what just now Arthur was mentioning about reusability. You can reuse this code, but what I'm doing this 2 times. So instead of writing a code 2 times, we can use with this thing called procedure. This procedure will be update total records. And this update total record would be doing this. So in other words, I just need to do whatever code for this particular procedure name called update total record. Just do once the code. I can reuse this in any place I want to put. In this case, I want to put 2 here, right? So I go to procedure. The moment I create a procedure, once I create a procedure called update total records, if you click your procedure here, you'll see this thing here called. If you don't have this, you won't see this. Earlier on, it was just these 2, right? So once you create a new procedure, it will allow you to click this. So instead of putting this whole code inside here, and here, I just need to do this call update total records. I don't need to do this like this anymore. I just need to procedure call like that. Okay. The good thing about this is, if let's say there's any bugs within this procedure, you just need to change here, and the rest are all updated. You don't have to go here and change the code. If you found a bug, change here, and then to remember where you left it, and then change it here again. You just need to change in one locations, and then if this process is being used in other parts of your code, your program, your application, they'll all be updated. Okay, this is how you use a procedure. All right. Okay, can all of you try this? Earlier on I mentioned is your storing multiple records using array. And then storing your storing this, and then using that as a record. Okay. So by implementing this, you should be able to get this thing, your app number 6, working. You should be able to store all the records, and then you should be able to see them the next time you enter your application. Can all of you update your mobile app 6? Today our focus will be touching only on 2 applications, because the other 3 I'm going to leave it for the next session. That will be accessing a remote database server, and I already set it up. So before we end the class, I would like all of you to try to see whether can you access. Okay, but let's focus on this one first. So at least your app will be able to store locally in your phone. Any question, please let me know. Yeah, okay, just give me a minute. See, yeah. Okay, delete the list view. Oh, okay, your one still cannot delete from the list view, is it? That one we have to touch, we have to see what is the problem. Is under after picking, right? You have this after picking. So after picking, then okay, some of you actually use a button to delete, which is okay. But I think I suspect this after speech mode, using the speech might have an issue. So you need to do some confirmation before you delete. Let's see. How to bring the update procedure? What do you mean, Abdullah? I don't understand. What are you trying to do on the update procedure? Oh, okay. So when you see this, when you do this, right, that particular number that you already store is already updated. Now, do take note, if you are actually using this and we're going to retrieve this total number of records, you're going to retrieve this in your app. You cannot do this anymore. Yeah. If you still have this, then you'll be a problem because your initialized global is not 0. It should be based on what you retrieve. So instead, when you initialize, screen initialize, so you're going to retrieve, right? That means you're going to get the total number of records tag, right? So you're going to do this get value, and the tag is this. And you're going to store this one because total number of record is a number, numeric. So make sure you do not take this one out, delete it, and take a value here. So that when it's retrieving a value and you have never stored this record before, you will store a value 0, which is the same as initialize this as 0. All right. So we want to initialize this not 0, but rather initialize this as global call. But you notice if you want to put that, there's a problem, isn't it? You give you an error because it cannot store. You cannot store this. You look at the error here. Okay. Yeah. So you cannot store this because this is not a constant, right? So you have to store this inside your, create a global variable here, and then change that. We also go back up again. You have to store that when you initialize your screen. In this case, global number of records, you have to retrieve the data and then replace that 0 with the value that you get from your phone. So by doing this, you actually updated your total number of records based on the last save that you did with the application. All right. So after you have already saved, then you need to go through your loop. Okay, this loop. So how will this loop look like? Because you initialize, and then if you have a total number of records you want to show here, right? But you do take note, if it's 0, you're not going to show anything, isn't it? But if you have more than 0, meaning if there's at least a 1 record you want to show. So that means that you have something what we call condition. Yeah, you got a condition. So you look at this. Last week we mentioned, if that expression is true, then we do something. If not, we don't do anything. Right? So in other words, when you first launch your phone, other than updating the date on the date field, you need to retrieve what is the total number of records that you saved the last time, and if there are more than 1, update this list, right? So the condition would be if this number is more than 1, right? So if this number is more than 1, meaning that there's a comparison of value, right? Numeric value. So you're going to take this one and put it here. And now you are comparing whether this is more than 0, meaning to say that if there's at least 1 record, you want to do something. So another variable, I want to get this total number of records, and it has to be more than 1, 0, right? So if it's more than 0, I want to do something, right? I don't want to show the name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to show this for loop to display into the screen. So it always start with 1, okay? Your list or your array or anything that you do here, unlike traditional, traditional programming, array always start with 0. But on this platform, you just remember it always start with 1. If you put 0, you have error. So it will go from 1 to not 5, isn't it? It should not be 5. It should be 1. What should it be? What should I put here? I should go to the loop. The for loop should be going from 1 to. That's right. So from 1 to the total number of records. And down here, you do your updating of the list. How do you update? It's the same thing as adding. And then instead of adding from the fields, which is on the text, you don't add from the fields anymore. You are adding the list from your TinyDB, right? Right? TinyDB, right? You're adding this. You notice one thing is that as you start to make this application more usable, things will start to get a little bit complicated. Okay, so it is always a good idea to do your something like what we call flow chart, or so that you can at least pour down your logical thinking how your whole application ought to work, even before you start doing all these blocks. All right. So we want to retrieve here the name, right? So it's retrieved from the Tiny database, meaning that we want to get the value. We want to get 2 values, right? Here is the name, and here is the temperature. So far in our list, right, you have this update. So far I have only done this, update the record, but I have not done the procedure for saving name and saving the temperature. So what you have to do is do another procedure. This one will be update name. Same thing for this, duplicate. I want to store that, and your tag is no longer this. So take note that whatever tag you save, you have to save that same name. So we're talking about array, right? So meaning to say that you're joining this tag list with the latest record, isn't it? So if I were to add, I'll be adding based on the number of total number of record, which is the index. So this one is, you see, did I put, just save any tag? Save to file, Initialize. Wait, I'm a bit lost. Let me search where is my name. Did I delete it? Click on date. Temperature. Oh, okay. I deleted already. So I must have my button. Click. So right now it's this one, right? Better put them together. So I click name, I click temperature, I get information. Then once I get information, okay. Oh yeah, no, it should be this. So click name, synthesizer 1, and I'll store that into the name before I update. Same thing for this. So when I click update, I've got to give a name for the tag. So this procedure is a saving name. So here is the so I'm going to use the total number of record as the latest record, because when I click update, my total number of record will increment, and that is telling me that that's the latest record that I save. So I can actually use this, duplicate, and then stop. You see where I'm going? So this particular tag has a name called the name with the number here. So if let's say so what this does is that, let's go back here again. So what this does is that this immediately becomes an array. So when I have the name, it will look like this, number 1. So if let's say I only have one record, no record, when I click the add update button, immediately the first record will have a tag name called the name 1. You press the update one more time, the tag will become the name 2. And so on and so forth. Okay. Any questions for this? If you're able to do this one, then this mobile app 6 is considered as full-fledged. So you can implement the same feature for your other applications, which I'll go through some of your applications that you've submitted. You can use this TinyDB for those applications so that your app will remember all the data that you entered before. All right. Any question for this one? Because the next application will be slightly more complex. We'll be using TinyDB also, but the way you use it might be a bit different. So importantly, you need to be very clear on this mobile app 6 first before we move on. Let's take a 10 minutes break. If you have any question, just put into the message. I'll look at it shortly. Okay, let me see. Wow, okay. Angela, you got personal issue. Let me see. Total sum. Select one item to leave. Okay. You see, after picking, update, right? So you need to add this. Do you have this? The global sum must -1 if you were to delete one item from the list. This is just a count. So you store this new total number of records -1 and back to its own. And then you do this update. Is here. Abdullah, if you get the argument error, means that are you storing a string or a constant into your maybe the tag that's supposed to be numeric? What is the argument? What is the error of argument? Maybe can you show me, or you can put it in the Skype. You can Skype to me. But over here, once all of you try something, you will see one error. I won't tell you first, but you have to try, then you can see the error later. Okay? Because that will help you to understand in more detail how this array works. There's one fundamental error here in this app, but I will show you later. But you have to try. Okay, I'm not trying to give you a lot of problems, but most importantly is that once you try, you will start to see, yes, it might work, right? Everything will works, but the problem is that once you start to add, delete, you will start to see an error. And that is, sometimes that is a common bug in other applications or other programmers that face. I started database script. My first database script I wrote was in 1988 with a PCXT. And during that back then, there's no SQL. So we have to write from scratch. I mean, in terms of the very basic. So when you go through all the different updates, start to append, modify, delete, your records tracking will have become an issue. So I want you to try and then to identify what is the error. Okay. The index will too large is not a problem, because if it's integer, it's 4 bytes. You can have 4 gig of 4 billion information. So it is not the this. Jonathan raised a question. When you start to delete when you have less, so remember we put in the condition in our this let me go back here again. We put in this initialize with this, got this condition, right? You also need to put this condition. If not, you will hit the problems that what Jonathan mentioned. But other than that, there is one problems. It might not generate an error, okay? Things might still work, but you start to see very funny thing. I won't spill the beans, but you all try and then you try to identify what is the bug here. There's a bug somewhere. Okay, so far have all of you able to save your data, save and retrieve? I'll move on and explain about a logical issue, okay? Logical problems. Because we've got to quickly move on to the next application very soon. Just give me a second. Just share this. Okay. Let me see. Okay, for before I proceed, regarding Abdullah's error, right? So that means what you're trying to do is there's a problem when you because the addition operation, right? When you do an add, most likely one of the element that you're trying to add is not a integer. It's not an integer, so you might have to check your value again. All right. Okay. Okay. Let me just run through a logical issue. Okay. Now, when you start to save, right? Initially, you will save my name for Susan. Tam 36.1. Okay, so this one is record number 1, right? Then my name, John. Sorry. Seven point two. Record number 2. Let me do one more. Other. So this is record number 3, right? So by this time, when you when you updated the information, you will have 3 information here, right? Meaning to say your total number of records should be equal to 3, correct? Now, let me just use another thing. So what happens if I press the delete for the second element? Meaning I delete this away. Delete. So in other words, I only have this and this. But my total number of record minus 1 is equals to 2. Right? But your tag, the tag has only my name 1. Oh, the actual tag name, okay? Actual tag name. My name 1. And second, this is for record 1. Then my name 3. Which is record 2. You see the problem now? All of you see the bug? So I leave this debugging problem to you. I mean, this with you. How are you going to ensure that if I were to delete the middle record, I will ensure that I save this and this will tally up with my record numbering. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is, if my total number of record instead of showing 3 is now showing 2, and I'm using a for loop to go from 1 to 2, how do I ensure I only pick this and not this? Can I leave this with you? Okay. How do we solve this? Okay. How do we solve this? As you start to develop out other applications that constantly keep tracks of data, right? You would tend to see this kind of problems again and again, right? Because why we are saying this is, let me just why we are saying this is because you have two separate data. This one, okay. Okay. This one, there's in memory, and this one in storage. Both of these must always tally. Okay. So you must always think about how you must always manage, always think of how are you going to manage your data, both in memory and also on your storage, right? So in database term, there's one item, one of the objective of database is data integrity. Data integrity goes beyond just checking that the data is correct, but it also ensures that things like you do not want to have double entry, you do not want to allow user to enter the same data again, And if let's say data are entered twice or more than that, you want to make sure that you have the latest information. You don't have data duplicates, which is what we call double entries. And you do not want to have data inconsistency error. All right. So for this mobile application 6, this is where we're going to stop before we move on to 7. Okay. Any questions for mobile application 6? Other than I'll just let you solve this yourself. It's a logical issue, but you have to think about it to, get your head cranking. Then you can come up with a solution. It's not difficult. It's a very simple solution, but you have to do a lot of verification, right? There's a few methods to solve this problem, right? Each of you might have a different way of solving it, but you have to think about it. All right? Okay, I'll move on to mobile application 7. Now, this one it probably look familiar to the engineers, but for the rest of us, we are going to do what we call a point of sales applications, right? So POS. So what we're going to do here is for the mobile app 7, we're going to create a inventory. We're going to create this inventory, and this inventory will reside in your phone. Okay. So this inventory has all these different fields. Stock ID, right? There's a stock name. There's a unit cost, selling price, and then you have a discount, right? Then that discount, and you have the quantity. This is the quantity on hand. And then lastly, this is the quantity to give a discount. So meaning to say, if this quantity for discount, if a quantity is more than or equal, okay, this is more than or equal sign, more than or equal to the quantity for discount, you're going to utilize this discount to offset from your selling price. Okay. So this is the inventory, and these are the different fields. And then in your application, you have these 3 options. First is you're able to allow your user to query the inventory. When they do the query, they just need to be able to enter or select the stock ID number, which is here, stock ID. And then the system or your application must show the total quantity left on hand or in stock. And then that information also must show you the info, which are the name, the unit price, selling price, and whatever discount that is comes with this item. So if the person were to choose number 2, sales transaction, okay. So sales transaction, they need to enter the stock ID. The user must be able to enter the stock ID here. Let me see. Yeah, this one is 2, right? I'm sorry. Okay, I got it mixed up. This is supposed to be number 2. This one's supposed to be number 1. When you query the information, it should show you like this. So this is query. Because when we query this item, they show you the stock found. If stock found, it will show this. If it's found, but if this item is not found, you enter this. Let's say for example, you enter this and it's not listed here. You will show this not found. Of course, you won't be showing the information in this in this text form because you're not on the app. You have to design one that will show not found. So when we use a different color, let me delete this first. So when the user select sales transactions, you have to enter, allow the user to select or enter the stock ID, right? Stock ID. And then enter the quantity required. Then you compute. So if unit price is this, right? Then this one is unit price times quantity required is here. Lastly, if you were to do the just use you were to do a stock update here, which is when you select 3. So you enter the stock ID. Then they'll show you the information of the stock item, the name, and then the current stock on hand. Then you enter the quantity you want to update. So the positive means it's going in, negative is going out. Okay. So immediately you notice that this would be a lot more, a bit more complicated when you want to put them into your app. One thing is, storing this should be quite okay, right? If you want to store this inventory, should be quite okay. Let's give ourselves 5 items, 5 stock ID, or 5, to store them into your phone. So you can have an inventory, a list of items with all this information. So in other words, you will have remember your this TinyDB, right? TinyDB takes in your tag and your value, right? And your tag you can becomes an array of tags, with its value, right? So since we have a fixed number of fields, So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So with seven fields, right? And I mean seven fields in this inventory. So in other words, we want to keep track of 7 fields of 7 areas of information, right? So let's say, for example, number stock ID. So for field number 1, we have 5 data. Field number 2, we also have 5 data. Same for field number 3, number 4, and so forth. Correct? So, but you also want to allow the user in future to increase the information. Increase, you cannot allow them to just stop. Okay, you only have 5 inventory and that's it. You cannot add more. You cannot add new items in your system. You can't restrict that, right? So in order for you to do that, meaning that this number of records will be something that is more adjustable or more variable, becomes like your element of number of elements. So what does it mean? Let me just clear this. So in other words, what you will essentially have is your tag name will be stock ID, and then number of records. This is tag. This is one tag. Another one is stock name. Unique cost. You see what I'm getting at? So let's say you currently have 5, so meaning you should have 5 here, right? So let's say if I want to, assuming that you have already stored all these 5 information into all your this TinyDB, if you want to access this particular item 100871, this one should be reset. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that means this item is number 3, right? So in order to access this information, if let's say I query and I found that this is the item that I want, meaning that you'll be using the tag of this is 3, stock name 3, 3, and so forth. So this will give you this particular information here, all this information. All right. Is this one clear? I know a little bit of theory, but you need to have some understanding on this before you touch on your application. Okay. So managing your inventory with this process, with this step, is okay. The complication will start when you start to keep track of your transaction. You see, if the user press 2, right? So this one is transaction number 1. Right? If I press the second time, if I select the transaction again, And this time I have, instead of this item, I use 100968. That is what? WD my clock. And this one is 3. And that becomes transaction number 2. So on and so forth. So you have multiple transactions and you need to keep track of this transaction. So how are you able to do this? So this one you do not touch, right? Because this one is your inventory. So in other words, you will need to have another set of tags to keep track of your transactions. So for the hint side is you will need to have multiple tags, particularly for your transaction. Okay. But first off, if you have these requirements, how are you going to design? Can all of you go to your App Inventor? Let's do this application number 7. All right, let's start. So I'll leave these questions on the screen here. So with this problem statement, let's design our application. Let's start a new process called point of sales, POS. Can you all think about your design first? Don't do any mechanism on your blocks. Just think of how you want to design this. Looking at these questions. Maybe you can do a snapshot of this problem statement before I move to my App Inventor. Okay. Okay. Now, in my App Inventor, you have you have 3 options, right? Likewise, this one I don't have to show you, right? This one, all of you should be very familiar by now, doing your layout and everything. Okay. Now, then I want to go over there. I have another. I put in a few because I think I will need a few. Okay. So earlier on, the problem statement was you have to create a point of sale system, right? And in your point of sale system, you have 3 options, right? 3 options. So what are the 3 options? Maybe let me just before that, let me just beautify. Let me find a point of sale. Image. Okay. I'm going to upload where is it? I'm going to upload okay. Let me put an image here, and that image I want to okay. So we have a point of sale system. So I want to make it center, and I want this picture maybe a bit smaller. Yeah, do 50%. Okay. Okay. So the first button is we are going to see do what? Query information. So likewise, button query, right? Query inventory. We'll move this to the center. And I'm going to make the button fill about 60%. Same thing, I'm going to have another button. Change that to this sales transact. And on a button, so transaction. I want it to be center. And then lastly is the stock update. Stock update. Okay. So this will be our menu. All right. So this is, so do you, all of you, do you have this? Are you still with me? I hope this one not become boring already. Don't let the complications or more work deter you, because development is like this. The more you do, the better you become. I mean, this image, you just need to click this image. Okay, let's say I want to put one image below, put it here, and then you click on this image here, but before you can use any of this image, you see, before you can use this image, this picture here, you must first upload. Go to this upload here media, this one, click upload, and then browse to where you want to store the information, store your pictures. All right. Once you have uploaded the image you show here, these are the list of medias. You can put in pictures, you can put in videos, you can put in sound wave like what Angelo did for his the other app. Put in a sound a wave or even MP3. You can actually use that to play back. Then once you've done that, click your image, go to pictures, and then select that item. Since I already have the image, I don't need this. Okay, just have this. So all of you have this. It's very simple, right? It's just very simple to create a menu. So this is your main menu systems. Then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to, when the user click this, it goes to a different page. So let's say user click query inventory. It should go to the query inventory system. So how do we do that? You see this screen thing here, right? By default, your main screen is called screen 1. So now we're going to add another screen. Okay, let's call this query. Oh, let's make inventory. I'm going to stop query. Okay, stop query. So once you have done that, you will see a blank screen. So go back to the same button just now. Click. Now you have two screens. Stop query and the main screen, which is screen 1. Back to your screen 1. So let's add a second screen for your sales transaction and the stock update. Sales trans. Okay. Then add another one. Stock update. So do you have 4 screens now? I only see Jimmy and Hanyo. So the rest cannot get to this 4 screen, is it? Okay, good, good. Now, let me show you how to get to these 4 screens, okay? Go back to the main screen, which is screen 1. All right, screen 1. Now, so in order to get to that screen, let's say the user click this query inventory button. it should bring you to the next screen, right? So we have to go to blocks. You go to blocks, go to the button query, right? So that means when you click. Same thing for your sales transaction, take out the click. The main screen is actually very simple. Your start update, another screen. So when you want to go to that, these screens, right? Right. So go to the screen, and then you would do this. Sorry. Control. I'm sorry. Put this control. Open another screen name. So when you do the query, you see, go back to your name that you put under this option must be exactly the same. Stock query. So if I press this, your screen name is stock query, so you must type exactly the same. Check again, make sure the name is exactly the same. Okay. And once you've done that, duplicate. Do that for the sales transaction. Your sales transaction is sales. Mine is a sales trans. So sales trans. And then lastly, stock update. Let me see mine. Mine is stock update. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go back to the block designer page, and then update your phone. And then do you get to see the different screens when you press these three? If you have any problems, please let me know. I want to try as well. So once you're here, then we need to start to think about how you want to do your stock query, right? So like designing your any app, you will need to do your layout again, right? So for me, maybe I will do a vertical layout one more time. And then this time around is our query, just like what I did, just like what we did for the mobile application 6, right? In this mobile application 7, stock query would be very similar to your mobile application 6. Remember? Because what we want is we want to have we want to be able to ask the user for to select the stock ID. Most you must to list from the list of stock ID that you have in your inventory. Update the list view. Isn't it? Very similar, right? So it's just a name. Don't really care. Stock ID. It's too small for me. Okay, stock ID. This one is for me to, I just want to have some space. It's at 3%. And then I want to add another horizontal. bit wider. And then this would be this is just a query, so I will only need to allow the user to select the stock ID, and then I will see this view. Okay, let me see. This will be another gap, 3%. And then have another. This one will be the bigger one. I will have two lists, right? Either you want to do a list or you can do a list picker. You see the stock ID, either you want the user to enter, but generally if your stock is not a lot, right, you can just go through a list. If like to practice, if you got less than 50, might as well just go through a list. But if let's say you got more than that, few hundred, thousands, then most likely the best is to do an entry, right? So if you do an entry, means that you got to put in a text box, and that text box is for the user to enter the stock ID, right? So once the user enter the stock ID, you will display the list of stocks that you have here. And then when the user click any of the stocks, it would show the information in this list here, two lists. All right. So for the stock query, I think this one is quite straightforward, right? Just to allow you to search for the items, search for the stock, you key in the stocks, and then you key in the stock ID, or wait, let me see, what am I doing? Yeah, you key in the stocks, and then or you don't key in. Let me see what I'm doing. My logical flow is a bit wrong. If I were to, actually not necessary. So maybe this one is to show whether do I have the information or not, right? So actually I don't even need to have two. Let's say, for example, if I allow the user to enter, I don't even need this. You see what I'm getting? If you allow the user to key in, right, then the information will appear here. But if you just do a list, then you don't even need this. But most likely you will need something like a label as an output. Put the answer this gap here. Maybe I need this. For this, maybe I need more than that. So this one is basically to label show query result. Maybe you want to show whether was the information found or not found. All right. Default text as red. Easier to see. Bold. Center it. Okay. So maybe your query will look something like this. Right. Then let's go back to main screen. Let's go to sales transaction. So sales transactions, let's see the question again. Okay. So the sales transaction would be to show, to allow the user to enter the stock ID, either enter or select, and then key in the quantities, right? Key in the quantities, and then they compute the items. Okay. So same thing, top to bottom. This is going to be, we're going to hit noon time already. So I think basically all of you got the idea regarding this application. So please work on these applications. This will be a full-fledged, pretty much a full-fledged application for, in fact, any apps. They will allow you to do multiple screens from a selections. If you look at some of the apps that you have, it will look quite similar to this, because normal app is not just one page, right? It has multiple pages, and you can actually navigate through different pages through selections or backspace. You have to do your configurations, and then after that, store all your information locally on your app. The next session on Thursday will be the last session. We're gonna see how are we going to access such information remotely. All right. So I'll leave my session on until 12:30. Anybody got any questions, you can just let me know. If not, you're free to leave. All right. Thank you for attending. Thank you, everybody. So anybody can have any questions, just continue. Let me know. I'm here to help. Yes, don't worry. Once I finish, it'll take some time for the video to be converted. So maybe about 2 hours later, I'll be uploading to the YouTube. I'll send you all a link. Okay. Oh, Jonathan, that's good. If you realize, if you're able to do this retrieving, okay. Retrieving is a bit funny, yeah, that's right. But you need to have your own sort of a system. How you're gonna manage this accessibility? When you do the array, go through the whole addressing. The best way is put all of them into different procedures. That will help you a lot. Okay, another thing I can show you is let me just go to the blocks. If you look at procedures, there's this result here. You see this thing? You can have inputs. When you have inputs, you convert this procedure, which should be normally a subroutine. Now you have inputs and a result. What does this become? It becomes a function, right? right? So you actually can use this as like a function. You have inputs, you have output. So if somebody wants to use this procedure, they just call this, give these two inputs, and that will give you a result. You can try this. Your app argument errors still exist. Abdullah, let me see. Maybe you can. Yeah, Jonathan, correct. This DB thing you try, because a lot of time you need to try an error. Even for me, the array also for me, I was try and error because it was never documented. But when I try, it actually works. Then for Abdullah, maybe what I can help you is, can you do this? Go to your build. No, go to your project. You see this export selected, this one? You see this one? Send me, I thought that's just a picture. Give me a minute, huh? Okay. You send me the AIA. Okay, let me take a look. Okay. This one is yours, right? Let's see. But you got nothing here. You got nothing here. You generally give it error. I can try. Let me see. Let me see what's the error. John. 34.1. Yeah. You see, you have this, right? You see this operation plus cannot accept arguments. Now, when you press update, what happens? Click yes. Total number of records. Now let's see your total number of records, because this is the one, right? So your total number of records, go through a loop. Okay. You see, this is wrong. You are giving your total number of record as a string, but you are using it as a number here. So how can your total number of records be number and string at the same time? This is not right. You got it, Abdullah? You cannot use string. You must use number. Okay. Okay. Yes, Angelo, you want to Skype? Yes, no problem. Amanda, let me see. Amanda, what's your problem? Yours is you have problem deleting, is it? Yours is problem deleting, is it? TinyDB results. So do you give me? Amanda, can you do this? Can you like Abdullah like this? Open your app, okay, Mobile 6 app, then go to My Projects, export selected project. You save as a .aia file on your computer, and then you send that to me so that I can actually see your app. Angelo, 1 second, Angelo. You got it? Same for Angelo. Angelo, you see this one? If you have problem with your app, go to the My Project and then do an export selected project. Save that the .aia file and then send that to me so that I can actually see your blocks at the same time. Is it okay? Because if not, it's very hard for me to help you if I cannot see what you have done on your app. Okay. Angelo, 1 second. I think it's your computation. I think it's your. Let me check Amanda first. Just save this one. Okay. I need to rename that. Let me do that. John, 31.1. Sam, 49.2. Your touch is not working. After picking, okay? After picking. Set. Confirm delete. Recognizer, but it never asked me. Recognizer tree is after getting tags. This was never activated, you see. Hang on. After picking, okay, after picking, you never activate this one. You see, that's why you can never get this. Amanda, you're here. You see your this after picking, right? After picking, you should activate your this speech recognizer 3, which will give you the result of the confirm delete, which will then transfer over to here. But you never activate your this speech recognizer. So what you have to do here is speech recognizer 3, then you here call get text, put it like this. Then when you get text, then this will get activated, then the result will get it. Okay. Yes. Okay. So where is yes? Okay, you updated already. Let me see text. Text didn't show yes. Why? Yes. Okay. Oh, Sam, yes. Delete yes. Yes. No. 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 Okay. Where the after list pick? Okay. Oh, okay. You were trying the TinyDB part, is it? Oh, okay. Okay, maybe to simplify this, because you know your this will tend to get quite big, right? So what for me I will normally do is that I will come out this procedure. I'll probably do, look at me, even though I might not do the same, but I have 3 procedures here to simplify your this big block here. Because who knows, maybe I might need it again later on. So this initialize screen initialize, I have this big block which is just to update date time, right? So what I do is I take this block, duplicate, put it here. So I can just put it as a procedure and I can just forget about it, right? Put it somewhere here. And then in my procedure, I have this update date time. Okay. Here, I'll delete this. Well, yeah. Okay. Let me make it easier to see. Then, okay, you have this. Total record update. Okay. Total record update is this one to update. Okay, good. The tag name. This one is to. This is fixed now. This is a fixed info now with your array number. Then this will constantly update the latest info, right? Update name. Okay. Then okay, there's a problem here. Total number of records. Which is wrong. Now I know. You see, you have this problem here. You're only getting the same item and storing that into your list. So your list will constantly showing the same item. Even not, I think you might not even get anything. It's because you are storing, this is the total number with array number, right? But right now is your tag is only just the total number of records, which is not true, isn't it? Because it should be the name. You get two values. This is the name. This is the temperature. So the name, you store the tag name as the name, right? You see, the name. So in other words, I must have a join here. Text, join. And then you see, the whole reason you use the for is because you have a variable, local variable called number. And this number goes from 1 to the total number of records, right? Which is what you store inside here, total number of records. You already get that value and store here. So you are going through from 1 to that number of records, meaning to say that this should be here, not like this, but rather like this, and your total number of records. All right. So you're getting the first name, the name tag, and store that value in the list. But you combine that with not the total number again, not this, but rather not the name. This time, this one is the temperature, right? So what do you store the temperature name, the tag name as? Let me just delete this away first. Where's the this is update name? Okay, how about update temperature, Amanda? You need to have another one here, right? Yeah, correct. You need to have another one here, but this one is not update name, but rather update temperature. Then this one should be the update the temperature. Is that it? So when you do this, then you must have the same tag name as here, then same array number as same element number. So you go through this, we go through this based on the total number of records here, and you update into the list. That's how you do this update. Okay, not just putting the total number of names here. Yeah, see this thing here? That one is the local variable. Okay, Amanda, you take a look at your own code, right? After you see how I make the amendment, then run through it again. Now, let me take a look at Angelo's one. Angelo, you're not getting this. Let me see. Stock ID, okay. Number, okay. Click update. Let me see. Okay. You add list, okay, global list SVU. You have the date time for everyone, okay, which is the current date time. Yeah, you start list. And then you add again, part number with this item. Then you update your how many lists you have? Let me see. SPU cost. Angelo, can you do this? It's very hard just to see the image alone because it should be all related somehow. Can select your project and then send it to me. Your AIA.AIA. All right. Okay, I think let's call it a day. Then we can go for a lunch. I'd like to go for mine. Okay, enjoy the rest of the day. Try and finish this app so that it will help you on your further app development. And then, okay, Zhongyong, thank you for the suggestion. Yes, I think it will help a lot. It'll be much easier. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.